Well, good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Dennis here from Canoehound Outdoor Adventure Show and Canoehound Adventures. Hope everybody's having a great week. I know the weather's been pretty crappy of late, but today turned out to be a little bit of a sunshiny day, and that's a good thing, at least down here in my neck of the woods. Here we are. Just want to welcome everybody in the chat to tonight's episode. This is number 30, and just been chit-chatting down in the green room with my guest, and I got a feeling you guys are in for a real treat tonight. It's going to be a great show. Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show is a weekly live stream show that's geared towards bringing you closer to the great outdoors. We like to bring you hot topics and guests such as YouTube creators that you guys all like to watch and follow and enjoy watching. So that's the whole premise of this entire show. And of course, we're live here every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So mark it on your calendars, make it your regular Tuesday night watch, and we hope you guys can join us. We got a lot of great topics and subjects and people coming up here in the near future. And speaking of which, I'll give you a little rundown of what we have coming up for the first 3 weeks of May. On May 5th, we'll have bushcrafter David Pearson from the YouTube channel Really Big Monkey 1. For those of you that are bushcraft savvy, you'll definitely want to check that out. David's got a YouTube channel that's very popular down in southern states. He's, I believe, around Georgia, so we'll be getting to know a little bit more about him. On May the 12th, we'll have one half of the winning duo from the History Channel's Season 3 series Alone. That will be Ted Baird. He'll be joining us, and we'll be getting to know a little bit more about Ted, maybe get into a bit of the Alone stuff, but really to find out what he's got going on with his channel. He gets a lot of content. So any of you that are the Baird brother fans, you'll definitely want to tune in for that on May the 12th. On May the 19th, this is going to be a unique show. This is we've got Stephen Coutts coming on with us. Stephen Coutts is... he's a canoe poler, and we're going to be discussing the lost art of canoe poling. So for those of you that might not have even known that something like that existed, you'll definitely want to tune in because it's a practice or a skill set that's been long and lost, and he's bringing that more to the forefront, a little more to people's attention. So by all means, check us out on that show, and it'll be a good one. Like I say, that's on May the 19th. And now to the typical COVID-19 stuff. I hope everybody is remaining safe and healthy and abiding by your local government's rules and regulations, trying to kick this thing. You know, it's all our responsibility. We all need to do what we can do to try and nip this in the bud. And unfortunately, for people that are in our wheelhouse, we're missing the things right now that we really love. Besides our freedom, is getting out there and enjoying the great outdoors. So the sooner we can kick this, the better. If you know anybody that's suffering from any of this of COVID-19 or coronavirus there, my prayers go out to you. Hopefully you get through it all nice and healthy. And what more can you say, right? We're all living this dream together, right? Well, it's more of a nightmare of anything, but and a big heartfelt thank you to all the people that are on the front lines for this, whether you're a healthcare worker or you know who the people are, and I'm sure many of you know people that are out there working on the front lines of this whole thing, and they're putting themselves at risk every day for our comforts and our well-being. So, you know what? Say thank you to somebody that's doing these things, and let them know that Canoehound is on their side, and I appreciate everything you're doing. If you can, I ask, please take a moment, try and share this out on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, maybe community page on YouTube here, just to get a little bit bigger of a crowd in here, because we have a great guest on, and obviously she deserves the audience, and that's a great thing. As you know, I love to hear your feedback as well. So if anybody has any suggestions for upcoming guests, topics, or anything like that, let me know. Drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com. I may sound like a broken record from week to week, but I am really happy that I actually do get a lot of correspondence from many of you letting us know the people that you want to see on the show, and I'm more than happy to try and bring that to you. It's what makes me tick. It's what makes me tick. A little bit of news about Canoehound Adventures. Last week I mentioned that YouTube has just set up a thing called memberships, and it's for channels that are monetized. And basically what it is you can become a member of Canoehound Adventures. I have it set up where there's 3 tiers. There's many people in the chat here already. Ones that you see their names in green, they're actually Canoehound Adventure supporters and members. What comes with that, you get perks. There's some back end stuff that's going to happen. Member only live streams, not these live streams. These ones here are always going to remain public. Sometimes, there could be behind the scenes bloopers and stuff like that I'll share out, but there's all kinds of perks that you can receive, as well as more chances to win things like swag and things of that sort. So feel free to check it out. You'll see the button down below. It says join. Check it out. You don't have to do it right now. Check it out later if you so be. And just go from there. One of the perks is I like to shout out my new members to the channel. So at this time, I'd like to just go over a list of some of our newbies on here. We have Nifty Paddler is a member. Ride Paddle Repeat, Avid Outdoorsy Guy, Aeronomy. Hopefully I'm saying that one right. It's either Aaron in me or Aeronomy. Okay. Anyways, Crazy Ann, Brandon Cosman, and just new tonight, Ari Rosen. So thanks very much, guys, for your support. And then at our solo tripper level, we have a good friend of mine, Stein North. So be sure to check out their channels and what their channels are all about. You never know, you might find some stuff on there that's well worth a watch, right? And I just see there's a new member come up here now too, Beasley Ironworks. Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate that. Just before we get to our guest, one last thing. As you know, this live stream, as are all my live streams, are very interactive, and we like to have a lot of participation from the audience or you people over here in the chat. If you have a question for myself or for our guest, because the guest is the point tonight, right? Usually I have you put question before your question in capital letters. Tonight, let's just put a big Q, and then you can put your question on. Hopefully that'll help me identify it, and I'll try to get that up on screen. I always like showing these questions from our guests, and our guests always enjoy watching it. So we'll just leave it at that. We want to see the questions. Just so you know, I'm a one-man show, and a lot of times these things will actually slip by me. If it slips by me and it gets way far in, put the question up again. I have no problem with that there. Just don't get crazy with it, but feel free to repost your questions. Anyways, we're here for one reason. We're here to meet our guest tonight and get to know a little bit more about her. Tonight's guest is a popular YouTuber that's an outdoor filmmaker, canoe tripper, skier, and triathlete who absolutely loves to get outside and tell a good story in an entertaining new way. She and her wonderful partner, Julia, enjoy backcountry camping in Algonquin Park and spending quality time outdoors. Everybody, please welcome to the live stream, hey. Chris Prouse. How you doing, Chris?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm out of breath. That was a long
thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, no problem. So good to see you. Thanks for popping on tonight. I appreciate you taking the time out and coming to talk to me and all the people in the chat tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure. And before we get into it, we need to let your audience know, I need to let your audience know how much work goes into you putting together all these live streams. Dennis spends a ton of time communicating with every week's new guest. It's a lot of communication back and forth, and he spends a lot of his free time doing this. So if you're tuning in, be sure to help out Dennis and Canoehound Adventures by subscribing, liking, and helping him that way, because it is a lot of work. So thank you so much, Dennis. You're bringing the community together, which is really awesome, and I very much appreciate it. So.
Oh, thanks for recognizing that, Chris. That's awesome. I appreciate that so much. You know what? It's really this is a labor of love, as I call it, right? Yeah. I get to meet some great people like yourself, and at the same time, bringing some knowledge to, like I said, all them people in that chat there. They're here for a reason, and that's to get to know people like yourself, my other guests, a little bit better, because why they follow you, and it's kind of nice to put a little bit of the background information besides the videos they get to watch, right? So.
Yeah, and we have such a fantastic community of Canadian outdoor adventure content creators, and it's awesome to see some familiar faces in the comments, like Alexis Outdoors and Ryan's All and Everything, and Joe's here as well. Joe and Karina, you guys need to collab at some point in the future. I'm still waiting for that collaboration. So.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That'd be a great one to see. I know Joe has recognized Karina in one of his past videos there, so
Yeah,
she must definitely be on his radar. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah. Get together, get those two dogs out there in canoes. I want to see that. I want to see
Oh,
that.
geez, wouldn't that be fun, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, a little bit of your background, if you don't mind, or
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I spent a lot of my summers exploring the shorelines of Georgian Bay as a kid. Really fell in love with that pink granite, the windswept pines, the beautiful vistas up there. And then I'd say when I was around 7 years old, our parents moved us down to southeastern Ontario between Ottawa and Toronto. And that's where I went to high school. I got into a lot of endurance-based sports like track, cross-country running, um, rowing, like crew rowing. And right around that time in high school, my dad purchased not even a mini DV camcorder. It was before mini DV. It was a regular DV camcorder. And I just started playing with that in my free time. But then straight out of high school, I went straight to basic, joined the Canadian Armed Forces. I was a naval reservist for a few years. But yeah, I was at basic, walking around in full combats and doing that for a little while. I had such a fantastic experience there. They teach you all sorts of really cool things like night topo, navigating, and the teamwork that you get out of that is phenomenal. I really appreciate that experience. But not long after that, I was kind of longing for a more formal education in business. And so I ended up going back to school and got a degree in economics. And then that helped me launch my business. But it's so funny that all along, even though I was going back for business, I was still tinkering with video. And like this is all before YouTube. Like I think YouTube launched in 2005, but before YouTube was around, I had already made hundreds of videos, just like little vacation videos and filming my family and things like that. And then, let's see, 2010 was a really pivotal year for me. I was out of school, and early spring 2010, I met Julia, who's been such a wonderful partner. She is the one who introduced me to backcountry camping in Algonquin Park. I had never experienced backcountry camping at all. My idea of outdoors was skiing down mountains and exploring the shores of Georgian Bay. But she had already been backcountry camping for many years before that. And so she had a wealth of experience that really helped me jumpstart my backcountry camping experience. And then the funny thing is that same spring, I just happened to be walking around town. I was looking for things to film. I was filming something downtown in our city, and somebody tapped me on the back and said, "Do you mind if we take a look at a piece of your work?" And I put something together, sent it off to them. A week later, I had a contract, and one contract led into another. And before I knew it, I was working left, right, and center for a lot of clients doing client work. And I made hundreds of videos, all before we ever posted one on YouTube for corporate clients. We made a few in Algonquin Park, but they were more like kind of home videos and not what our audience has come to recognize as their current vlogs. But we made a few in Algonquin. And then around 2015, right at sort of like the height of travel vlogging on YouTube, like it seemed to be like blowing up on YouTube. You had bloggers like Fun for Louie and Ben Brown and a number of others. They were out vlogging their day-to-day stuff with little point and shoots. I had been filming with high-end cameras, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, and just like, picked up like a little point and shoot for the fun of it. I thought if I'm going to try vlogging, I should use the same camera that they used. And that's what we launched the channel on. And Yeah, I started the vlog on that little Canon S120, and then gradually over the years, my filmmaking brain just kind of got tired of how far you can really stretch that image,
Yeah.
and I just started ramping the production quality up to levels that I'm more accustomed to working for with clients. But yeah, that sort of brings us up to now. So that's
Yeah, and you know what? I know a lot of people really admire your editing skills and stuff like that. And we'll probably touch on that because leading up to this show, I actually had a lot of correspondence with people saying, like, can you ask her about how to do this or how to do that? Maybe we'll get into maybe a little bit of your editing knowledge. But something you touched on there, and I wouldn't mind hearing more about, maybe others might too, is your experiences with the armed forces.
yeah.
Because I know last night we spoke a bit about that, and you mentioned about like the night topo and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about that and how it affects you now, or what it does for you nowadays.
Yeah, and I should mention when I came out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and it just seemed like a fantastic summer job. And both my grandfathers on both sides of my family both fought in World War II, and so it was kind of nice, a nice way to honor them as well. But went off to basic. They give you formal weapons training. They teach you how to navigate and do night topo. Well, with a platoon at nighttime, and you have nothing but a compass. They send you out into the field, like into the simulated battlefield, and you have to navigate, up to 5 kilometers through the night with nothing but a compass. And they do a lot of calibration work up to then, so you'll gradually. I don't know if this is how they still do it, but like they would get you really comfortable with pacing out, your stride and comparing that to how many meters you go on average and what you have to count to do those distances. So your platoon would then, assign like some pacers, and then there'd be one person navigating, and there'd be one person sightlining, and it was just a really fascinating experience that's really sort of helped later on with navigating in the park. But basic was a fantastic experience in the sense that I don't think you'll ever see 40 to 50 people in a platoon. You'll never see that many people work together so efficiently together for the successful completion of a task.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody is like pulling together to make something happen, and it's wild seeing that many people work together to successfully complete a task. And that was a big takeaway for me. It's just like the real cool team building experience that came out of that.
Right.
And all around great experience. If you don't know what you want to do in life and you're fresh out of high school, it might be a good experience for you.
Right. And so now where has that gotten you today? Like, do you use, when you and Julia go out on the canoe trip, do you actually utilize a compass when you're out there, or because you do a lot of Algonquin, you kind of just follow the path type of thing? But
so the funny thing is we actually use compasses very little when we're out in Algonquin. We do have one with us. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm drinking coffee. We have a compass with us.
Crack them if you got them, people. Sorry.
But for the most part, it's really line of sight and just going off of map reading. I'd say where it does come in really handy, sort of on like a day-to-day basis, is like I can sort of pace out my steps, or if I want to, I can count my steps through the portage. And it, like I know some people will probably find that monotonous, but like sometimes I will pace out my steps, and sometimes I can just kind of like keep a running tally in the back of my mind that gives me a sense of how far we are along the portage. It's been handy for that. But sometimes you just want to turn the brain off and just enjoy the portage.
Yeah. Because there's a lot to see, and you can miss it if you're staring at a compass, right? But
what about you, Dennis? How do you navigate?
You know what? Believe it or not, I have a very good sense of direction. I always have a compass with me, but I really study my maps a lot before we go on a trip. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of them people that I will keep my topo map in its map case right in front of me, and just I'll flip it in the direction it needs to go, in the direction that we're traveling, right? So the map might be upside down half the time, but I actually follow points and contours and the contour lines, like steep cliffs and stuff like that. And I could touch wood. I've never been lost on a canoe trip. Just that skill of following the map is very good. Maybe I might be looking down a little bit too much, not looking up and I miss a lot of the scenery. But yeah, most of my navigation is just through mapping, and I've never used a GPS like that. So hopefully, I never need it.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I pretty much navigate the same way. It's once you become proficient with a map, it's almost like you don't need a compass. But like bring one just for backup. I think who was it? I think Kevin Callan mentioned once about he was talking about how easy it is to get lost if you just walk into like the thick bush. Like if you just like go off the beaten path. And you have no reference and you can't see the sun because you're surrounded by treetop cover. That's where it starts getting quite dangerous.
Yeah, see that I've never really had to experience that though, because I've always either stayed on the trail or within like eye shot of a campsite or whatever, right? So and that's not hard to do in Algonquin Park because you can see your campsite from a quarter mile away. You're going to look for wood, right? So yeah. Yeah, that's all cool. That's good stuff. So it's good to know that you got that experience and that background there to get you through. With that kind of experience, have you two ever paddled at nighttime? Have you ever done like not just like a leisurely paddle, but have you ever, as part of your trip, trekked to another lake by night?
Yeah, so we've done it a few times, not by choice, in the sense that. There's an important distinction in the sense that if the stars are out and say the moon is out and it's dark at night, sometimes the starlight and the moonlight is enough to sort of give you some sense of vision at nighttime. But there have been a few instances where there was one instance in particular in our first Algonquin series where we had just pulled out onto Hogan Lake and it was complete cloud cover. And it was very late at night, no moonlight, no starlight, and there was a storm on the way. Unbeknownst to us, the storm was rolling up and showed up about a half hour after we made it to our campsite. And then there was thunder and lightning and everything broke loose. But that particular night, I remember trying to navigate that night, and there was virtually no light whatsoever. And it probably the most difficult navigating I've ever done, just because I was using the peripheral vision, looking above the tree line, way off in the distance, trying to pick out small, minor elevation changes. But it was probably the most dangerous paddling situation we've been in. But on a few other instances, like I have gone out paddling at night when the stars are and the moon's out, and it's beautiful. Have you?
Oh yeah. We've done a few. Well, not really travel days, but like let's explore the lake because it's a full moon and you can see everything, right? One of those deals. But I've never really traveled at night. Never been there again. Never been in that situation where I said we got to get somewhere and we have to travel at night, right? So, because I like seeing the sights and stuff like that. Mind you, they say some of the best paddling, and everybody knows the wind, the big fan that blows all that wind at us during the day disappears usually at nighttime. Right? Yeah. So that's cool. I see a lot of questions coming in here from the chat, and I'm going to probably get into a couple of these. I don't want to get into the editing ones yet. Chris and I will talk a bit about her editing, and we'll get her to give us a few tips or pointers to make us better YouTubers. But yeah, because I see a lot of questions there. Let's see here. Okay, here. This is more of a comment question from the other guy in the canoe. His name is Mark. Question: your memories of the Big Crow Hogan portage? I felt much better about myself seeing two Iron women saying it was tough as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is one of the more challenging portages out there, and it's exhausting in the sense that it's a longer duration with a lot of elevation change. But to be honest with you, like it's usually the weight that makes it challenging, but it's still not as difficult as knife for sure. So it gives us a lot of perspective out there. when you have something to calibrate your mind against that's sometimes more difficult. And that's why I always encourage people, you know, if you think a particular portage length is difficult, just go out and try to do an even longer one, and it makes the previous one seem that much better.
Now I'm curious. Did you happen to meet Mark on that portage, or did he just hear you mention that somewhere else before?
I'm trying to remember if we met somebody on that portage. Oh gosh.
We'll let Mark answer that. Let us know, Mark, if you did run into.
Yeah, if you did, I apologize. We do frequently meet people out there, and yeah, it's fun to meet people out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tara Lynn H is asking, have you ever been to Tobermory, and what were your thoughts or experiences of that beautiful part of Ontario? It is a nice area.
Wow, that's on the to-do list. I have not been up there. There's so many places across Ontario that we need to check out, and I feel like our first love is definitely Algonquin, but we definitely need to check out some other canoe routes through Ontario. There's so much more to offer, as many of the people who are joining in with us have attested to. I mean, like backcountry angling Ontario and some of the others that you mentioned, like they're out there finding some really cool routes through different parts of Ontario that are definitely worth checking out. And at some point, we will definitely branch out beyond Algonquin Park.
Right. Yeah. Well, we were talking about Crown Land camping there. Maybe we should try to experience something like that. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll hit a couple more of the in the can questions. What's one of your bucket list trips that you and Julia would love to paddle?
Bucket list trips, I would say goodness, we crossed Algonquin Park about 9 years ago. We did it in 8 days. I would love to go back and film that again. I don't know if that counts as a bucket list trip, but
if you think it's on your bucket list, then it's a bucket list.
Yeah. It's a different kind of experience when you don't go on a loop and end up at the same place. It feels more like a journey, and you get like a much broader cross section of the park when you go all the way across. Joe did it a few years ago, had a fantastic experience. I would recommend any Algonquin Park enthusiast to give crossing the park a go. It was one of my favorite trips, and I would love to go back and film it for the channel. Yeah.
Is that the east to west or north to south?
We went from west to east.
West to east, okay.
And the wild thing about that trip was when we were crossing into the White Partridge Lake area of the park, so kind of a little past halfway, we essentially went for 3 days in the middle of summer without seeing another party of campers, which is something that you can't normally say in the south end and sometimes even in the north end. It seems like that mid-east area of the park is very unmaintained in a lot of areas and very unfrequently traveled. So it's very quiet out there. Yeah.
I see a great question. I wish Julie was on with you right now to be able to answer this one. Maybe I'll save this question for when Julia joins us. Maybe you want to tell everybody where Julie is right now.
So she's actually just putting Cedar to bed. We take turns each night putting Cedar down for the night, and his bedtime was around 7 tonight. So Julia should be joining in hopefully 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so Donald Dakota, I will get to your question in a minute because I think that's a great question for Chris here for sure. Let's see here. Anything else here? Okay, there we go. From one of my regulars, from Josie, she's asking, what part of Algonquin Park have you not been to yet that you really want to go to?
Oh, I would say the Radiant Lake area in the northeast is an area that we've heard a lot of great things about that I would love to check out. Parts of the west side of the park that we have not ventured into yet. We have, when we cross the park, we naturally go through, we did go through the west side, but there's so much of the west side, like the corridor that goes up through the park to the left of Canoe Lake. A lot of that area we have not explored yet, so would definitely like to check that out.
Would you say most of your canoe tripping though is done in Algonquin Park?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Is there a particular reason for that though, or is it more of a security thing, knowing there's other people around if you need it?
I would say it's mostly just nostalgia. A lot of fantastic memories there. And as much and as often as we go to Algonquin Park, we always feel like there's more to explore. And there's always something around the bend. There's always a new lake that you haven't seen yet. And that's what really keeps us coming back. But having said that, we do want to branch out and try other areas. Definitely want to check out Killarney at some point as well.
You know what? I have never paddled Killarney.
Really?
I've been doing for how many years now, and I have never paddled that park. I don't know why. Not for any particular reason. It just hasn't come about, right? So
yeah. And so, Dennis, what is your favorite park, or what is your favorite place to camp?
Well, I guess I'd have to say Algonquin Park, just because it's the only provincial park that I've really paddled. But as I was mentioning to you earlier in the green room there, I've been there 4 times in the last year, and that's more than I've been to Algonquin Park in the last 20.
Wow.
I'm a Crownland camper. I like canoeing, north of North Bay and Temagami, or north of Sudbury area, and getting up into the I guess that's called the near north. Or is it the north? Well, whatever. But yeah, I like getting way up there and getting back into where there's nobody. I don't like seeing people. It's not that I'm antisocial. I just like getting back, and it's cool to know you paddled all day and not seen another canoe or a boat or a cottage or something like that.
Yeah. And what has been your absolutely favorite camping trip of all time?
It's hard to narrow down to one, but I would say probably one of my most favorite was the Mizanabi headwaters, being dropped off on a bud car, the bud train that goes from Sudbury up to White River, and yeah, dropping us off at Bull Cow Lake, 1 kilometer portage, and then you're in the middle of nowhere and paddling back into town, right? So it was that was a really unique, beautiful trip, very rugged. Last year's trip, though, the Nebequasi River up around where Brad Jennings lives,
Yeah.
It was probably one of the toughest trips we've ever done. It was
Wow.
rugged. We couldn't find portages. We couldn't find campsites. It was and not finding a portage because it was decimated because of a clear cut area. So
Wow.
all kinds of neat stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But those are the remote trips I really like. I like the ones where you get out there and you don't know where the campsite is. It might show on a map, doesn't mean it's there, right? And those are the cool ones. So
yeah, and we were joking before before the stream. It'd be fun, to just throw a dart at the board amongst the Crownland camping areas and just maybe try to make it there.
Yeah.
That would be a really fun challenge.
Yeah, but you know what? Brad Jennings, I'm going to be checking his website out because he's got a lot of undocumented canoe routes that I've never even heard of.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely going to check that out because he's got a wealth of information there that you can actually go on there and plan a whole trip on there because he's got all the details done, right?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
check it out. Check it out.
Crownland camping is something that we have not tried yet, but I'm sure it's a whole nother world and a whole new level of experience.
It is.
Yeah.
Once you experience it, you might be hard pressed to want to have to go back to. Mind you, you know what? Last year I did my very first solo trip when I bought my Swift pack boat, and it was the first time in the 30 some odd years that I've been canoeing that I actually did a solo trip, and I went to Algonquin Park solely just for the reason that I was alone. And if something had happened because it was my first solo trip, I wanted to have that luxury of having people around, right?
Yeah.
The whistle, hopefully the cavalry comes, right?
Yeah.
That was my reasoning and that was my first time back at Algonquin Park probably since early 90s or mid 90s, somewhere around there. So, well, no, wait, Yeah, well, maybe closer to 2,000. So,
And sorry, where did you go on the solo trip? You went up to?
that's I did Smoke Lake,
Oh, okay.
Porcupine, up to Banishare Lake, and it was right around not long after you and Julie had been there, or maybe you guys were there just after, because I know the campsite that you were camped on versus the site I was camped on, because you're on that like little rock outcrop, and I was
Yeah,
point over, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's
and
so
beautiful lake, beautiful
cool.
lake.
Yeah. I did my first solo backcountry camping experience in Algonquin as well. It was maybe about, when was it? It was maybe, oh gosh, it was probably about 6 years ago. And I went from Canoe Lake up to Sunbeam Lake. And the weather was supposed to be spectacular. I was going to go up there for 6 days. I got up there, and on day 5, it just snowed on me. And it was mid-May. The
Yeah.
temperatures the week before were like in the low 20s, and so I expected everything to be wonderful. But I got snowed on and froze my butt off in the tent.
Do you solo trip often?
No, that was the only experience solo camping, and that was a hoot and a half in the sense that, gosh, so I paddled up to Tom Thompson Lake on the first night, and not long after I showed up at the campsite there, thunder and lightning storm rolled in, crazy storm. Woke up the next morning, I was trekking up to Sunbeam. There were thunder and lightning storms on my way as I'm trekking through the portages up to Sunbeam. And at this stage, I'm sort of questioning whether or not I should be like, still going up there by myself through all this lightning and thunder. I get up to Sunbeam Lake, third lightning and thunderstorm the next day, and like it was just it was starting to wear on me a little bit. And then the fourth day, it snowed on me, and so it was not your typical solo camping experience, but character building to say the least.
Right, the gods weren't with you on that trip.
No. And what I sort of learned was that it was an interesting experience. It gave me some perspective. Gave me a lot of respect for people who do go there and do that on a regular basis. But it felt kind of lonely. Like there weren't very many people camping in the area at the time, and not being able to talk to somebody when the weather is crappy really kind of sucks. I know Joe was talking about on the live stream yesterday. He was talking about how winter camping is fun, but the evenings, can be kind of long, and unless you're, relaxing with somebody else and chatting and passing the time, it gets a little boring. And that was my experience as well. It was kind of, what do I do? Well, I'm just sort of waiting for the weather to pass. And it felt, it was a long solo experience.
Yeah, we've all been in those situations. You get them days being windbound or weatherbound, and it's well, what are you gonna do? You wait it out. Mother Nature always wins, right?
Yeah.
So Chris was alluding to about Joe there. Joe was actually on a live stream last night with Nicholas Green Outdoors. If you get a chance, you guys check it out because it was a great show. Nicholas was just a young man there, and Joe went on his show there and really made his day. And actually, it was a really entertaining show. I enjoyed it. I was on it for the whole 2 hours, so it was good times. Because we haven't got Julia, let's get into a little bit about your video skills, your editing prowess, because you have something that is you got a very polished product. Let's put it that way.
Thank you.
We talked a little bit about your camera. Let's start with your camera gear. You showed one of your first starter cameras that you use there. What are you using nowadays to shoot with?
Yeah, so nowadays I'm shooting on a Lumix, Panasonic Lumix G9, and the specific reason why I'm doing that is because this is essentially a Panasonic GH5, which a lot of indie filmmakers love filming with because you can really push a lot out of that camera. If you know what you're doing with it, you can really stretch the image and get a lot of quality out of it. The only difference between the Panasonic G9 and the GH5, if you're considering the 8-bit filming, we're not talking about 10-bit. And for most purposes, for filming for YouTube, I'd only ever really consider filming in 8-bit. The one standout feature of this camera is it has an additional stop of stabilization over the GH5. So it's already a super stable image. And then when I combine that with like a full-size gimbal, I just get like unparalleled smooth tracking shots out of it that I'm kind of obsessed with. I was very influenced by the movie The Art of Flight, which is a snowboard film made by Red Bull Media Production House. And they were filming with Cineflex cameras, which, if you don't know, are like $500,000 camera systems based on military grade 3-axis gimbals.
So put one of those on Amazon, okay?
Yeah. And what's really cool about the look that they were achieving was with those super stable systems like the Cineflex, you can film at really long focal lengths, like all the way over to like 600 millimeters, while the camera shot is super stable. So what I kind of really like about the G9 is I get a super stable image on the gimbal as well. And I can film up to 200 or 300 millimeters and get just a tiny bit of what that Art of Flight vibe is, in the sense that really long focal lengths, really stable. And I like using that in the Canoe option because it's just a look that you don't usually see in the Canoe. But yeah, I'm kind of obsessed about it. Most people would probably just film wide, and sometimes we do film wide. It's very easy to make a wide angle shot smooth and stable. That's why GoPro is often a fisheye, and it's easier to make that appear stable if you apply if you apply stabilization and post to that. But it's often much more challenging to stabilize a long focal length shot. So yeah. Right
on the same question, Backcountry Bushcraft was asking like what type of gear do you use, but also how do you manage the weight and the bulk of that?
Yeah, so let's see. Oh, hey,
look who's in the background.
Hello.
I'm gonna put a full wide angle. Here we go. Here we go.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to the stream. How you doing, Julia?
Good. How are you?
Good. Cedar's all down to bed now?
He is. It went very smoothly tonight. So
Beautiful.
Good.
There you go. Time for a tea and a little relaxation now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're having a great show. You joined in at a great time. Chris is telling us about her camera equipment.
She's not very interested in the camera equipment, so
it's okay.
I got a great idea. You know what? Maybe I'm gonna have, if you would like to, maybe have you on and a couple of others, and we'll do another show on shooting videos and techniques and stuff like that. That might be if anybody in the stream would like an idea like that, a show just dedicated to film shooting and editing things, put out number one in the comment section. Let's see if the people want it.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah. It'd be really interesting to hear you guys like talk with each other on techniques and
Hey, I'd be the first one in line trying to learn, because I shoot and I edit, but not to that girl's ability.
Yeah. It's so impressive, right? Like, I'm always amazed after we come home from a trip. Like, I'll watch the video and be like, yes, that was like, I am now feeling how I was feeling on like at that moment on the trip. Like, there's some kind of magic there that is more than just like, here's the footage.
Yeah, like my stuff. Trying to be all happy in the background, right? So, you know, the one thing I've always wondered. Thing, Chris, you always do your little maps, right? And I've seen a few other YouTubers do that. I got to get some pointers off you on how to do that map, because I think it's a great way to convey where you are, where you're headed, and you know what I mean. But you make the little car going and a little canoe going and the little pop up.
It's so funny, those little map compositions. I kid you not, for each video, I probably spend, this is more time than I'd like to admit, but I probably spent about 5 or 6 hours just working on those little map compositions.
They're so finicky.
They're very finicky. And the plugin that I use in Final Cut actually crashes quite a bit. And sometimes it doesn't even render out in the finished product. And then you have to troubleshoot where it's going off the rails. And It's I appreciate Dennis that you enjoy having them in there, and so I'm glad about that. But they can be a little pain in the butt sometimes trying to work them into the videos.
Right.
But to quickly answer the previous question, we carry about 25 pounds worth of gear out there in total, and we'd probably carry more if Julia let me.
You could call that a triathlon workout, right? You're in training for your triathlons, right?
Yeah, I'd say in a lot of ways the trips kind of skirt like how much gear and production value can we get and translate through into the final product without it really stopping the trip or slowing us down or kind of altering how we would take a trip. So, we could definitely take bigger, more expensive cameras out there. We could rent really expensive professional camera gear and take it out there if we wanted to, but it would really slow things down, I think. And so I had to remember that we're very much on vacation while we're out there. And so I had to be kind and respectful to Julia's.
I just have to put it out there that I think I'm pretty understanding.
Oh,
when you're like,
yeah.
look, I bought this new battery pack that's like significantly lighter than the old one. But we're all delivering the old one just in case the new one fails. And together they're like 5
Well,
pounds.
the load hasn't really lightened up, Eddie. It just got added on to.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we truck out there is like a full size gimbal that the camera rides on, and it just ends up eating a lot of battery power, and so we end up fighting our energy needs on a daily basis, and just trying to stay as topped up as we can as we go. But we're usually coming out of the park on like day 7, like on complete empty, and just sort of scrounging together the last ounces of energy in our batteries. But yeah,
Right.
But this one deserves a lot of praise and thanks because she hauls a lot of that gear around for us out there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Julia carries a lot of it. So.
That's all right. That's it. That's like, who carries the beverages? That's what I want to know. I'll tell you what. We had an awful lot of number ones pop up in the chat. So maybe, you know what? I think a great idea. Maybe we'll try to set something up there, Chris. Where
absolutely.
We could do a show just dedicated to that. Maybe, on a Thursday night or something like that on an off night, because I got a pretty full schedule coming up here in May. But so we don't keep everybody waiting. But I think, you know what? I think that would make an awesome show.
For sure.
So too.
For sure.
Yeah. So we'll get back into a little bit more about the canoeing stuff. And somebody had posted a question that I was specifically saving for when Julia popped into the chat.
Wow.
And it was from, I forget the fellow's name. I apologize. But the question was something along the lines of, how has canoe trip planning changed since Cedar has come along?
Oh my gosh.
A lot more planning now.
So much. So before our first trip, we spent I'm a big planner. So I tried to think of all the different facets and all the questions that I had, like, what are we going to do for his clothing? And what are we going to do for food? And what are we going to do for him in the boat? He has a life jacket, but he can't sit up on his own yet. At least he couldn't back then. So do we do a bouncy chair, or do we put him in a little bucket, or do we just lay him flat? And there were so many things, and sleeping at night too, right? How if we were to follow the safe sleeping recommendations, it's pretty hard to do when you're camping. But we were just trying to figure out what would be the most comfortable for him and what would be the safest. And we ended up really just testing things out a lot. We went on so many different little short canoes. Our very first canoe, we posted a video of it, but that 30-second video was the 30 seconds when he wasn't crying.
Okay.
Because our strategy of just laying him flat in the canoe did not work at all.
Back to the fine editing skills. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, excellent editing skills. So yeah, has massively changed. And I imagine just like with everything else in parenthood, like everything changes as they age, right? So like what we figured out this last year, we're probably going to have to figure out new strategies for like our walking child, and how do you keep them from drinking the lake water, and how do you keep them from jumping out of the boat. So it's definitely possible to go canoe tripping with babies and children, but it's definitely a different experience, and you need to just focus on like savoring the fact that you're out there with a child, and not be too focused on like making a certain distance, or like getting things like eating fancy meals, or like just everything needs to be super simple, so that it's just like, okay, we got out there. Win.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, it certainly changes the dynamics, right?
Yeah, we should also add that, so we will do trips with Cedar in the future at some point again, but we are also going to let grandparents take Cedar and kids, so that we can also do a few regular trips where we're covering a lot of a distance. So going forward, it's going to be a bit of a mix. It'll be some family trips, and it'll be some trips like our audience has always known them to be. So
So you've had him on one extended day trip so far?
No.
We've actually done 2 full, like one overnighter, and then 1 3-night trip
in Algonquin
in
the interior.
But granted, the 3-night trip, all 3 nights were on the same campsite.
And Dennis, I don't know if you've heard, but for the first trip that we took him on, we actually had a bear come into our campsite 3 times while we were in the backcountry. But we stay tuned for that in the upcoming series. I won't give too much of it away, but
it was supposed to be a 3-night trip.
Yeah.
Well, when you're ready to post that one, let me know, and I'll get it up on my Facebook page and make sure everybody sees that one. Jeez.
It'll be a good one.
It'll be a good one.
It's exciting.
It was exciting.
I thought I was being really brave, but in the footage, my
like
roar, get away from my baby scream was more horrifying.
Now we're looking forward to it.
This one, like, apart from some screams, like, handled it like a champ. Like, Julia was the one that was out there, like, confronting the bear and standing off with it. Like, the bear came within 2 meters of Julia, and
is that right?
Quite possibly the biggest black bear I've ever seen.
Well, they're bigger when they get that close to you.
Right? That's true. But
well, this one reminded me to grab the bear spray, so that was helpful.
So did Chris drop everything and run for the camera, or like is that all captured on film? No.
So
that's a funny thing. So Chris was in the tent with Cedar, and when we first noticed the bear, her 100% of her focus was like, keep my baby safe. And I was the one to be like, so babe, I know this is gonna sound weird, but are you filming this?
Get the shot! Get the
shot! Yeah, we got the shot.
Yeah, priority number 1, stay safe. Priority number 2, get the shot!
Yeah.
Wow. I'm looking forward to that, but at the same time, you know what? I'd have probably soiled my shorts if a bear got that close to me. A wild bear, anyways. Jeez. Okay. I don't even know where to go after that, man. I've been on the show a long time. Question here from somebody in the audience. Tina's asking, thinking into the future, what flying trip would you like to do with a teenage Cedar?
Oh wow!
Here you go. Here's your chance for a bucket list trip.
Yeah, where would you?
You know what's silly? I don't know what the fly-in trip options are. Well, I'm so boring.
So there'd be Well, there'd be many options to fly in.
Is Quetico a fly-in option?
I don't know. Is Quetico a fly-in spot?
I don't know. I have somebody in the basement down here that might be able to answer that question. Just so he knows I could see him. So that's all cool.
Yeah.
But we got a couple of guests that'll be joining us after we do the swag giveaway.
Cool.
But I do want to get to a couple more questions from other people. So yeah, we'll get on the topic of maybe a fly-in trip with you guys.
And woodland caribou could be a really good option for a fly-in. Yeah. That's a staple, I think, for a lot of people.
And we really want to do Killarney, which is not a fly-in, but that is on my bucket list. That's on our bucket list.
Yeah. So I got to ask, Chris, you mentioned that Julia got you into backcountry tripping.
Yes.
What was the first trip you two did together?
Oh, okay. So the very first trip was Julia took me up to Canoe Lake, and on our first day we went up to I think it was Burnt Island Lake on our first day, and it was a good experience. I was having fun, but then it wasn't until day 2 when we then went up to Happy Isle Lake. Oh my goodness! So day 2 of that trip, we pull onto Happy Isle at like 2 in the afternoon. There wasn't a breath of wind, not a single cloud in the sky. The lake was a complete mirror at 2 in the afternoon. We paddled out onto the water. We pulled up the paddles. The last few drips fell off the paddles, and then there was no sound whatsoever. Just like I'd never been in that much expanse in the middle of a giant lake and couldn't hear anything. And it was probably the most profound, life-changing experience I ever had, and I was hooked right from there. So,
thank goodness for that too.
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes that's all it does is people don't realize how much fun it is or the experiences you can have, and all you got to do is convince them. Come on out, let's paddle, let's do this.
Yeah.
And you never know. Either you're going to love it or you're going to hate it, right? And if you hate it, well, never do it again, right? But if you love it, you got yourself a new canoe partner, so to say, right?
Yeah. I have yet to bring someone out who didn't love it.
Exactly. Unless they're, Holiday Inn campers, right? So, yeah. So what was your first experience with a canoe trip, Julia? Like, where did you gain all this outdoor?
Yeah.
Wanting to do it.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that I got tripping with my family, but actually I got tripping with outdoor ed. So a high school outdoor education program. We did a whole bunch of trips together, including canoe tripping, and I just totally fell in love with it. And from there, I actually got my dad into camping. And then after a few trips, we got my mom into camping. And then through the course of my life, I brought other people out. And it's really cool that now we've got this channel where we'll get messages from people saying, oh, I was so inspired by your videos. Now I went on a trip and it changed my life. And so it's like this beautiful ripple effect from outdoor education, which is why I think it's so important to maintain those programs for kids so that we can continue to have those ripple effects and get people out there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. You know what? Everybody in this chat loves the outdoors, and we all have our own specific reason how we got into it or whatever. It's interesting to learn the different stories of how people got introduced to loving the outdoors or the backcountry, right? Because, like I say, it is for some, but it's not for everybody. But either you love it or you hate it, type of thing. Anyways, we're almost 8 o'clock, and I see a couple faces down in the basement there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to my giveaway, and then we're going to get into all kinds of more stuff because I could do probably 2 or 3 shows with you two because we haven't really touched on your being triathletes, anything like that yet. And it's all stuff that I wouldn't mind finding out more about myself. But we might have to try and get into that later or another show. You never know. A follow-up, right? So, yeah. Let's see. Chris, here's one for you.
Yes.
It's not a question for you, actually. I want to do my swag giveaway. I want you to have a question. And we're going to pick the first 3 people that answer your question are going to be the winners. It's the first time I've done it this way.
Okay.
So I'll just tell a little bit about what the prize is. I've got Canoehound Adventures and Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show bottle decals, like they're all stickers. And the first 3 people that get the answer right will need to send me an email to canoehound@gmail.com. It's on the screen there. And I'll need your full mailing address, not to be shared with anybody. It's just so I could send it out to you, and I'll get that out. So, Chris, you have a question for?
I have a good question. It's a key question. So, what do we refer to? What do we call chipmunks in our videos?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh.
That requires a dedicated fan.
Yeah, there you go.
We've mentioned that only a handful of times.
Probably half a dozen times, I'd say. Yeah.
Can you see the chat?
Let's see.
If you hit the little comment thing up in the top right corner, you should be able to see the chat.
Are we on
Yeah.
that?
We'll see. So what do Chris and Julia call chipmunks?
And it's a specific.
I see a couple coming in now.
It's a given name. It starts with a C.
Oh, people know the answer. I love it.
And Dennis, there's only one. There's only one Carl in the entire park, and he follows us everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So we got to see who the first 3 were. Is it Carl with a C?
We've never specified.
I think it is CARL. That's how we would call.
Because the first 2 I'm seeing here, one starts with a C, the other one starts with a K, and the other one starts with a C. So
I
you're good for the first 3. I think they're right in a ballpark, right?
I think we would honor both.
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. We've
Okay,
never spoken the actual.
We've only said it verbally.
So in order that I'm seeing it on my screen, it may differ on yours in the chat from what everybody might be seeing, just based on the way things are going with the internet right now. I'm seeing the other guy in the canoe said Carl. We have Martin Kirsteins said Carl with a K, and Matt Hahn said Carl with a C.
Hey,
And for those of you not familiar with Matt's YouTube channel, you'll definitely want to check that out tomorrow night. He has a premiere. I believe it's episode 4 of Mark in the Park.
Yeah, Matt is rocking an awesome series with Mark. Mark and Mark, yeah, he's doing some great stuff. Definitely worth looking at.
So let's see here. Yeah, there you go. So Mark, the other guy in the canoe, says he still calls him Carl too. So the 3, you can please drop me your full mailing address. I will get the sticker packs out to you in the mail either tomorrow or the day after, and you'll probably see them within the week unless you're in the US. Then it'll take a few more days because of snail mail. So that's all cool. Anyways, we have a couple people in the basement here that I wanted to bring up. I asked Chris, who she wouldn't mind seeing joining us here for the overtime portion, which will take us till about 9 o'clock. And one of the people that she mentioned was this fella that everybody sure knows and loves, and we see him all the time. It would be Mr. Kevin Callan.
Hey.
And look at this outfit. You are like the Don Cherry of the canoe community. You know that.
Nice.
When I was talking to Kevin, he said he will not wear his bathrobe tonight. On the outdoor canoe symposium there, but he wore a bathrobe. I thought he was on naked.
Dennis, that's not how it went. You said, don't wear your bathrobe tonight. And I said, well, I will, but I'll wear pants this time.
There we go.
Waited, for heaven's sakes. Look.
Yeah. So we'll get into how Kevin and Chris and Julia are kind of not related, but are related YouTube-wise, and we'll get into a bit of that. Now, another person that I'm bringing up on screen here is somebody who was a guest on the show last week. Many of you might have seen that. And he and Chris did a bit of a collaboration video there, and I'd like to find a bit more about that. But welcome to the stream, Mr. Joseph Robinet.
Hey,
Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hey guys,
Hey, long time no see.
how's it going?
Not bad. You? Hey, I can't believe this. We got you, like the video working again.
Hey man, it's meant to be.
I know, right?
I got my.
You must have paid the
I
internet
like
bill.
that shirt.
I got it. I think the other one, not Algonquin Outfitters, but
The portage store?
There you go. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's okay. So
Almost
hilarious.
a logo, Joe.
We bought almost that exact same shirt
Yeah.
from the portage store for Cedar.
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
it's probably the same. It probably would fit him. It's probably the same size.
All good stuff. So I guess we'll start out with a little bit with Kevin and Chris and Julia.
Sure.
You guys did a whiskey fireside chat with Kevin. If anybody in the chat hasn't seen it, go back and check it out because it was a rather interesting one. And Chris actually did one in reverse where she interviewed Kevin. So it gave a really neat perspective on both of your editing skills. Very different, but similar in the same.
What, are you trying to say that she's better than I?
No. No, you know what, Kevin? Your fireside chats lately have been awesome, man. Like,
Yeah.
I love the way you're pulling in clips and stuff. That's incredible.
You're just surprised I'm quiet through the whole thing. I just ask questions and just say nothing.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
No.
Kevin is rocking the fireside chats. I watch every single one of them. They're awesome.
I got some great. I filmed some today. I got Jerry. I've got Adam Russo. I've got David Hatfield. I got James Raffin. They're all coming. And you know why? Because we're in isolation.
Yeah. What else are we gonna do?
That's the best part of this whole thing, we're still communicating though, and it's
Sweet Jesus, I'm drinking tea now, for the love of God.
why?
Rocking that Sioux College mug, eh? I see that.
I graduated from there. There you go.
I know.
Okay.
So how did that fireside chat come about? Obviously, Kevin approached you, Chris.
So Kevin and I had been trying to connect for many, many years. Well, I should say maybe like 2 or 3 years. But Kevin is an incredibly popular guy and very difficult to pin down. And he's all over the place. He's jet setting, and it's challenging to. The funny thing is, he would have a date that would come available, and then I'd have something going on, and then vice versa, and it kept going on like that for the better part of 2 years. But we finally managed to put together a fireside chat. We give them
winter camping and stuff like that too. Like it's tough. Like the real life is tough, right? I mean, because I'm a single parent and I only have my daughter half the time, right? So and then you all of a sudden had a baby.
yeah.
What's with that?
And so yeah, it's just to go out and make it all happen was great. The cool thing was the first thing I when I went to you guys' place, Chris showed me.
You're pretty much for living in suburbia, aren't you?
Well, no, that didn't surprise me at all. What and also what didn't surprise me is how organized Chris's office is. Like it's perfect. Like there's no dust on any camera whatsoever, right? And by the way, Julia, you are a very good cook. In fact, my daughter really liked that meal.
So we had to have you over for dinner another
I
time.
see something happening here, Joe.
We didn't have to put pepper on it because it was already burnt. And we just used the crisp pieces of pepper.
Okay,
I'm
whose
normally-
story do we want? Do we want Julia's or Kevin's?
Actually, it was a good meal. We had a great time. Mind you, Joe, the whiskey we had was, oh my Lord, it was fire something. What was it called? I left it.
You and I?
Yeah. Fire and
Fire and Cane, I think.
yes.
Oh, Joe, don't drink it. It's like really.
Stick to the wild turkey. What was it? What was the turkey one?
Oh no,
What was that one?
No, it wasn't that bad.
That was bad. That was
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we have Joe here, Chris. Ask him why he sleeps outdoors and not in the tent with everybody else.
bad.
Well, Joe is just like a level above everybody. He doesn't need a sleeping bag. He just he stands up in the snow and then he just falls over backwards, and wherever he is, he sleeps there.
I think we just snort too much. All of a sudden, Joe disappeared. There's this whole video outside the hot tent as he's in the wilderness and we're in the hot tent, cowering into the hot stove. And Oh
Okay,
my
so we're in a hot tent. We're like 4 guys deep, and it's like it's one of those ones where the stove's in the middle, and we didn't bother to shovel it down because why would we do that? So we have the fire, and the whole deal, how it just kind of starts to slope all in, right? And I have this like brand new -10 mech bag, and I'm like, there is no way I am brushing up against this stove. So I just took it and slept in the woods.
Also, I know is we woke up and Joe was out in the wilderness, surviving in the wilds while we were around the stove, and I said, I think he's going to be a YouTube star one day.
And then we walked along and looked at tree buds and reminisced about. Yeah, it was actually pretty fun.
Yeah. Joe and I have some good background. We both forest technician from Sioux College, right?
Yeah, I was in like a park operations, but a lot of the same programs. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to forestry and parks, and then so we go out in the woods and we started identifying twigs together, and it was like love. It was fantastic.
It was, yeah, at first twig in the winter.
I would totally agree in the sense that, like, usually when I'm walking around the forest, I have no idea what the trees are apart from like white pines and red pines and maple trees, and that's about it. But when we went winter camping with Joe's like pointing out trees left, right, and center, and I'm just like, whoa, that's
by their scientific names, right?
It's some of them. It's honestly one of the only things I've retained from like my $10,000 I spent from at college. You know what I mean? So it was well worth it. I'm very happy about it.
Wait a second. Okay, so you spent 10 grand.
Yeah.
And you know how to identify buds.
Yep.
I don't know. Okay, maybe that went over a lot of people's head. I think it even went over my own head.
I get it.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Joe and Chris, you guys, I've seen the question come up a couple times in the chat. You two did a collaboration video, and there again, it was really cool because we got to see your perspectives. Chris was really shooting all the stuff, and different side of Joe, seeing like Joe driving the truck, and then the documentation or the commentary and stuff like that. Tell us how that trip was really supposed to go, because it wasn't really what you guys had planned, was it?
No.
Okay, so the original plan was I was bent on winter camping at the highest point in Ontario, which in Ontario is actually, I believe, Ishpatina Ridge in Lady Evelyn Smoothwater Provincial Park. And I spent weeks looking at routes, planning things out. I ended up talking to the superintendent like 2 or 3 days before the trip, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't think those logging roads are serviced this year. Like they haven't been plowed in a long time. You're not going to be able to get up there even with a 4-wheel drive vehicle." So I'm like, 2 days before this collaboration is going to happen, I'm like, what are we going to do? So then, like the day before, Joe and I decide to go to Killarney instead, camp at the top of the peak in Killarney Provincial Park. And essentially from there, you see what happens in the video, like the weather turns to crap. And we were talking about it beforehand, and we came really close to like calling the whole collaboration off. And then I said, I think I know this place that I came across called the Ghost Range, like on the same website, and like with a name like the Ghost Range.
Yeah.
Like you can't go wrong with the Ghost Range.
Well, it was meant to be at that point, I think.
Yeah, and then it just turned out to be like crazy long haul of a drive.
Yeah, like an extra 9 hours or something, right?
Yeah, Joe, you can take over. Like it was a slog.
Yeah, it was beautiful, man. We had to almost we got where we were going, which was almost Timmins area, right?
Yeah,
and we almost had to call it there too because there was nowhere to park.
Yeah.
I was worried about my truck on the road or whatever. We flagged. Remember, we flagged down the. That's in the video. We flagged down the plow and like asked her to plow a spot. She's like, "No, just park down here or whatever." So we were pretty confident, and then didn't get very far at all. But yeah, it was a fun adventure, man. It was
Yeah.
So-
we hiked it. It was so cold. Remember how cold it was?
Oh, it was getting, I think it was getting to be like -20 that night. And then coming out the next day, it was like getting down to -29. Like it was just crazy. And I should, for the record, Joe was way better prepared than I was. I was like, I'll take more film gear and take less cold weather gear.
Yeah, but look what the finished product was. So.
Yeah, that's true. But like,
never mind, like frost nipped toe. You don't need all
you
of
two
those.
were supposed to be camping for how long? It turned out to be one night, an overnighter, right?
Yeah, what we were supposed to do, 2 nights, possibly.
yeah, possibly 2 nights. But like Joe, like, yeah, it was, the snow was so deep. It just, and considering how far we had to drive, it was just like you sort of did the math in your head, and you're like, there's no way we're getting up there at the rate at which we were going that day. It's like it would have just been like a whole nother day to get up to the top, and then you were tight for time, I was tight for time. It's getting close to the holidays, and like what can you do? So ended up being like a classic story of misadventure, but I think we made the best of it.
Yeah, and then we hitchhiked back to the truck.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's actually something that Joe brings up a really good point. That's not in the video. We come back out to the road. My feet, Joe brought much better boots than I did. I had a terrible choice of winter boot. My feet were freezing. We get out to the road. A car just randomly is going by. We flag down the car. They were kind enough to stop. We got in.
They're like worried about us, eh?
What's that, sir?
They were like worried about us.
They were like, "What the heck are you doing out here?"
Wow.
Yeah.
How far were you actually parked from your access point?
Oh,
That far, a kilometer down the road, maybe.
yeah.
You said the plow actually said go park up there because they had a wide spot or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So again, you guys really got hammered with snow that night. Obviously, like I think you had the shot on there. You woke up in the morning and the tent was half buried.
Yeah. It was a snowstorm. We found the snow, as Joe says in the video. We found the snow.
Yeah, it was a good time for sure.
So
It was fun to have.
Coach 2 on that. Who come up with the idea of that collaboration?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I think we just talked about like doing a project together at some point in time.
Because I originally came to you about the trailer, and then I think we just for my Stranded series, and then we just continued the conversation. I think from there.
Yeah. And like I've got another idea in the works, something that in Algonquin that I'd love to turn into a film with Joe that I think it would be awesome to do in the future as well. And so hopefully at some point when the COVID lifts, this is kind of a crazy time.
There's your answer, Ken.
There you go. Yeah, Ken, I was holding on to the question there. You might have that.
Yeah. It's a different world. It's crazy.
You guys look like something that's really epic. That's like, I feel like that trip was epic in the sense that like there was crazy snow and crazy weather and crazy cold and lots of driving, but like you'll then need to do something epic in terms of like
actually camping
and mountains climbed and like
right. Because in all honesty, we didn't do much. I mean, we got in, we hiked in, we crashed. I drank like a Mickey of freaking CC to myself and passed out hard. Like, just like, oh, it was so bad. In the morning, I feel like crap. I'm like, oh, I pick it up, it's empty. I'm like, oh, that's why. Yeah.
So how did you guys work that though? Did you just meet somewhere specifically, like in the middle type of thing? Because I know Joe's way up north, and you guys are from like the Kingston area. So obviously you didn't drive up to where Joe was and then back down, or did you?
Yeah, so we agreed to meet in Sudbury the day before, and like we met at the keg. We chatted over dinner about what we were gonna do the next day, and like I rolled into dinner, and Joe's like, I've got bad news. Like it's gonna be it's going to be like +1 or 2 and freezing rain.
Yeah.
And you just can't trek 8, 10, 12 hours through that all day long and then freeze at night. Like it just would have been it would have been a recipe for disaster. So
Well,
yeah.
Joe, Kevin, you guys ever thought about doing a collaboration or a whiskey fireside chat?
Oh yes, you have to do a whiskey fireside chat, Joe.
Yeah, I'm into that. We've done a couple videos together. I have 1 or 2 of me and Kevin camping on my channel. I think he has the same, but that was a few years ago now, eh?
Yeah, it was a while back, eh? Oh gosh, we're sounding like Canadians, eh?
Hey, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all Canadian panel here. Holy cow!
Oh, I know it is.
There.
And we all have been in the Sioux at one point of our lives.
Yeah, it's true.
Except for me.
Oh,
Never been to the Sioux?
Not yet.
Not yet. Wow.
You never even drove through it? You've never been to Lake Superior?
yeah, you should put that one on your bucket list up there with Killarney.
Yeah, I need to take her back up there. I still have a ton of family up in the state, and she needs to meet some of them. So
Yeah, man, I love it. Like it's beautiful up here. Living right on the coast too. It's like it's not boreal forest yet. You know what I mean? That starts a little bit more north, but we still have all the sugar maple you can want. You know what I mean? Birch, everything. It's just the Algoma Highlands in the fall is just lit up with red. It's beautiful.
Yeah, but Chris, we're not really feeling like, I don't know if you saw his video that he actually couldn't upload anything over an hour because he lives in the boonies. Like we're good. You and I are good through this pandemic. We can put videos out every second. But like you can't, Joe. Like what the hell's going on?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, like in the specific spot that I'm at, it's the worst for internet ever. I'm surprised that this is working. I'm actually thinking, you know, of buying land around near or around Bancroft and building a house, because I think that's a good happy medium. I'm only right now from home, which my home where all my family is, my wife's family is. That's a good if I'm lucky 10-hour drive through Canada. I'm ruling out driving through the States. You know what I mean? I don't even put that into an option anymore going forward. So it's like 12 hours from here to get home, or from like Bancroft there 6, you know what I mean? Which is so doable for me. I'm so used to driving. 6 is a laugh, a walk in the park. And you're up there. Bancroft is in the middle of nowhere still. There's decent land. I love the terrain, that Canadian Shield, you know what I mean? So it's like I have a lake in my backyard, but it's an enormous lake. I'd prefer a more inland lake where I can canoe around and fish and things. Like I don't have to worry about like an ocean tsunami coming up. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's a few perks for living so far that I do right now. Like there's maybe 10 cases of COVID in all of Algoma County. And I mean, that's a huge area. So, but I think Bancroft might be a happy medium.
I think you should go for it, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's just north of me. I don't want him in my neighbor.
Hey, man. Come on, Kevin.
Oh, well, how do they say that? Burn.
my daughter's right. She's, oh, love of God, Dad. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything. She's
Wow. Kevin, are you your lake obviously in front of your house is opened up? Have you been out paddling, or are you able to go out there paddling?
No. There's been a huge kind of reason for good reason. A couple of boats went out maybe a week ago, and the whole neighborhood went crazy. They said, you can't do that. We can't do that. You can't do that. The launches are all closed. So I mean, I don't live on the lake because I have no money. I live up in the hill across from the lake. It's beautiful sunset tonight, but if I went out there, in theory, I could. The local cops won't do anything to me. But it's like telling everybody that, you know, wear your PFD, but then go out paddling without your PFD. You got to show a sample, right? You got to show that, you know, this is what we should be doing. Yeah. So it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, especially with Joe, you're up north, right? I mean, it's a totally different realm up there. It's like it's not like here.
It's so relaxed, man. No, we're four-wheeling, we're fishing. No, we're talking to conservation officers. Nobody's batting an eye. It's not like that. I know it's different up here, and I am very lucky.
Yeah, I think we really have to like make decisions based on local epidemiology and
I
local
totally.
public health.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
like if we were all in New York City, we wouldn't be leaving our homes at
That's
all.
right.
Yeah.
Right? So like we still are going for walks in our neighborhood and like really like Kingston is not that bad, like especially considering that we're not that small a city.
Yeah.
Our cases are pretty good. So
we should mention for context, like Julia is a public health nurse. She's got a master's degree in public health.
Every live stream, you say that I have a master's degree, and it's really irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant.
But what it means is she's doing lots of really cool stuff. So she is also working on the front lines. Like this past Sunday, she's in an assessment center swabbing patients. But then, swabbing noses. But then 9 to 5, like she's like tracking cases and charting and calling out patients and like writing algorithms for software and like it's.
So she knows a little bit what she's talking about then.
Yep.
What's that?
She knows a little bit what she's talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. Some of what you just said is not entirely accurate, but yes, I am working in public health. I do swab noses on Sunday, and I do other work in.
As long as the swabbing part is accurate, then
I have not written computer algorithms. I'm not sure what that came from. I've written like workflow algorithms.
She told me she was writing algorithms. I'm like, that's not fancy. So I'm gonna tell people that.
Okay, we're going full screen on this one.
oh no, see what you did.
Well, thank you, Julia. Thanks for all that you're doing there. That's you know what, without people like you, man, we'd be in a real pickle, right?
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's all the frontline people are putting themselves at risk every single day, and they're doing it for the better good, right? So.
Yeah.
Put yourself in danger for everybody else.
Yeah. Well, we're lucky we've got enough like masks and gloves and gowns and stuff. So I feel very safe at work.
There you go. We're gonna look funny if we get out canoeing this year and we have to wear masks out on the water, right? So.
I highly doubt that. You know what? I'm crossing my fingers that after May 2-4 weekend they're gonna be like, okay, have at it. But who knows?
Yeah.
At least for camping, Crownland camping, maybe. You know what I mean? Like at least that.
Yeah. I can definitely see them loosening restrictions in May because we seem to be like most places in the province are doing pretty well now. I had this like funny thought. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to bring it up, but I'm just going to start talking. So I normally work in sexual health. And in sexual health, like there used to be a time where you could have lots of sex and like there weren't even sexually transmitted infections that you had to worry about. And now like HIV has come along,
right,
and gonorrhea. So now like every time you have sex, you have to like make like a risk assessment. Like, I mean, if you're having sex with like a casual partner, right? And I was thinking like, what if with COVID, like I'm sure we'll get a vaccine and people will develop immunity, but like if we didn't develop a vaccine or have immunity, then like we could live in this post-COVID world where you like every time you wanted to have a one-on-one social interaction with someone, you'd have to like weigh the risk and benefit and like, well, I've been isolating for 14 days and you've been isolating for 14 days. So like, I think I'm willing to take that risk and like get together with you. And anyways, this is just.
No, I don't think you're far off. I think people are already doing that.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
The things we don't think of it.
On a bright note, Julia brought up she brought up a cute idea a few days ago. She was like, you know what, if we do get to go camping in August, like say the restrictions are finally lifted then, at least there's going to be a crap ton of firewood at every single campsite. Like it's going to be like, all that firewood that's been collecting all summer long and on all winter long on the campsite is just going to be abundant.
Well, that's a good point.
Everybody's going to great campfires.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to have more wildlife because all the animals are having sex out there without us watching.
I know. I think of all the bears and stuff that will be coming into your camp.
Maybe there will be less bears because there aren't the people there feeding them.
This is true. This is true.
Or maybe there'll
Portage
be
trails will all be all grown over.
more wildfires because of all the dry brush laying around because nobody's picking it up. I don't know if that's that extreme. I'm probably not.
Okay, I got to put a question on screen here. Zach's asking, do you guys think Ontario parks will be fully booked as soon as they reopen the park?
Yeah.
I'll be booking my trip now and hoping things open up.
Yeah.
Can you even book a trip now?
You can.
Well, wouldn't they have to give the people who had reservations already? Wouldn't they have to give them first come? You know what I'm saying? Like hierarchy. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Priority.
Priority.
They
That's
can't.
the word.
I don't know. You know what? I don't think Canada or Ontario parks would look at it that way. They just first come, first serve type of deal. I think.
Seriously, wow.
That's what I'm thinking, anyways. So with that question being put up there, Julie and Chris, did you guys have an ice out trip or an early spring trip planned?
No, we had plans, but I thought Ontario Parks announced the closure would continue until the end of May.
End of May.
Yeah.
And then potentially further on TBD. But as soon as they said that it would be closed until the end of May, we were like, well, I guess we're hoping for August then. Because
How about you, Kevin? Did you have a trip
Kevin
planned?
probably has more knowledge than anyone on this.
Yeah. What was that, Joe?
I was just saying, Kevin, you probably have more of an idea about this than most people.
Yeah, it's all mixed, but I do know the whole facts. National parks and provincial parks are closed until the end of May. And national parks maybe further. And if you made a reservation, I made my trout trip already for the second week in May, and the day it was announced, 2 hours later, I got a notice from Ontario Park saying, "Here's your money back." No issue. Yeah, so you don't have to pay any issue. Whether you can book now for July, August, you could a couple of months ago or a month ago, because I made some other bookings for August, and they're all still set. So in theory, if something happens, we won't have to pay the penalty. But if you're waiting, and that's what's going to happen now, we're all waiting to see what's going on, and then we're all going to say, "Yay, we're out of the gate!" We're all going to go and try to make a booking. Good luck getting a booking, right? So it wasn't a mistake. I was on CBC quite a bit lately talking about, well, there is Crown land across Canada. You could do that. Some people thought that now you could go to Crown land. No, you cannot. You can go for the day, but you can't camp over. Whether you can fish for the day or not, I've had different officials tell me, well, in theory, you could, but we don't want you to because we don't want you to gather and we don't want to rescue you if something happens. So, and yeah, Kevin, you're in the media, so please stay home and do nothing, right? And they have a very, very solid point, and I'm not doing anything, even though I've got a lake right in front of me, right? But the locals are telling everybody, don't go out in the lake right now. We want to stop all this stuff. Well, when it happens to going to Crown land after all this happens, the goods and bads is, a whole bunch of us, like Joe and you guys, all know some secret Crown land spots. And as Ty Martin would tell you, it's not that easy to find them. Everybody's desperately trying to find them right now. I'm getting like emails and messages beyond belief saying, please tell me your secrets. And I will, because that's what I do. But at the same time, too, is I'm the wilderness pornographer. But then when you live where Joe lives, I mean, most of the land that is around you is Crown land, right? So where we are, it's different. It's sort of little sections of secrecy. Even with Stream, like this is the first year since I was a kid, since I was actually probably 4 years old, I did not go out trout fishing on opening day. And it was weird. And there's been times where I've been going out to trout streams with my father years ago where we would hide the vehicle and hide our tracks on the road, make sure nobody knew where we're going in to catch the trout. This is what's going to happen at the end of May.
I got yelled at by a smelt fisherman the other night. He was very angry that I was near him. but I was like 10 feet away from them. It wasn't near them at all. I raked in the smelt the other night. I've never been smelt fishing before, and some of the locals from around where we are here were like, we'll come in separate trucks, we'll point you in the direction, go grab a net and dump it in a bucket type thing. And we went at like 11 o'clock at night, and it was fine, and then it turned off completely, and then by like 1, I swear it was like 3 nets and a bucket was full. I struggled to lift the net. The net was literally bending with the amount of smelt. So I bring it home.
Wow.
And I have 2 young girls, a wife, and my niece who has been with us since before this stuff got bad. And I've kept her here for months now, and they're all young girls. So I was expecting, like, we're cutting the heads off, gutting them. I was expecting some squeamish stuff, but they got right into it. My daughter's like cutting the heads off. We're deep frying them or whatever. We sit down, we have a big old spread of smelt. None of us have ever eaten before. We just gorged ourselves. Everyone loved it. The girls just eaten more than me. It was amazing. Went better than I could have thought. That said, everyone's telling me like you're gonna get sick of it by the end of it. I'm good. Like 1 night, 2 nights to smelt a year. You know what I mean? I'm good doing that whole cleaning nonsense that eating them. But it was like a seasonal thing. It was good. I was happy to partake in it.
It's interesting what's happening. My partner Christine, she lives in Kingston, where you guys live, and she lives in an area that there's not much. I mean, if she sees an ant on the ground, she's really excited. Like, there's not much living there, right? And she's got rats, she's got baby rabbits, she's got squirrels, she's got different birds, and it's almost like she's the Dr. Doolittle of the neighborhood. She becomes Zoolander, right? And it's because these animals are like, well, there's no one around, so I can do whatever I want.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, the pollution's down and everything, they said.
Well, yeah, all the cars are off the streets and everything, right? That's you figure how many vehicles are just parked at home now.
Imagine New York City alone.
Yeah. Heck, my wife's car, her battery died yesterday, and I had to reboost it because she hasn't been driving, right? So I had to charge her car up there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So, do we have any questions here? I should be going through the thing here. We got a good conversation going, so that's all cool.
Nate had a good question. I didn't understand the sunset clause for Crown land. What does that mean, Nate?
Maybe that you have to be gone by that time.
Yeah, you can't sleep over, right?
Oh,
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
right.
Okay.
I had not heard it called that either.
Okay.
Sunset clause. Okay. I'll have to see if I can find that there. Millie from the Bushcraft Daughter. Joe, you're familiar with Millie. She was on the show with you there last week.
Hey, Millie.
Asking Chris and Julia, what would be your favorite trip?
Like, what has been our favorite trip?
Yeah, one that you've already partaken in.
The one where, what was it? We started going up Opiongo and then went to
the big Algonquin trip.
Yeah. What are the names of the lakes again?
Opiongo to Big Crow to Hogan to Lemire, and then looping back down around. Yeah. That Big Crow lookout on Crow Lake, it's phenomenal. Yeah.
But I have to say, like, the reason why it was such a great trip was not the actual route itself, although the route itself was great, but just like that trip had everything. It had like crazy weather, it had laughs, it had like this amazing like sunset hike thing. We like went this route where we did like 4 kilometers of unmaintained portages in a day. So it was like this whole obstacle course of trying to carry all of our stuff in our canoe. Like there'd be like 3 down trees in a row, and we'd be like navigating around them, and then we like finally get our stuff back ready and on, and then like 2 seconds later there's like 3 more down trees.
Yeah.
And it was just a really like exciting, full, memorable trip.
Yeah, the best trips are when things go wrong sometimes. Yep. When like things that you wouldn't normally ask for on a trip, but end up making it that type 2 fun. And the most boring days sometimes are just when you go from like point A to point B and there's nothing of consequence. And as a storyteller, like that's really challenging to turn into an entertaining story. So it's fun to have some degree of bad weather or some obstacle or some challenge or something to get through. So
Yeah.
Yeah, here's one for you, Chris, because I'm sure you'll be talking about this with Ben next week or later this week. You got an interview with Ben Stacy, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He's putting up a question he could ask you on his show. How you doing, Ben? By the way, if you guys had a worse trip, a trip that you guys wish that damn, I just wish I never went on that trip.
My solo trip was like it probably wasn't worth it. It gave me some interesting perspective, like particularly to what people like Joe do on a regular basis. Like I didn't have very much fun solo camping, so that was probably my worst trip. But I don't know.
Yeah. There was one trip where I remember we like had like a few slog days and we finally had a rest day where it was beautiful and sunny and warm. And Chris convinced me that we should go and like portage like 2 kilometers to another lake and like hike up to this lookout, this amazing lookout. Like, look on this map. There's like this like thicker line. It must be a lookout spot. Like there must be indicating something.
It must be a lookout.
There must be a trail up. And it was just, you know, the lines on a map that indicate like the height of the terrain, like the topographical maps. It was literally a topographical line indicating that it was like 100 meters up. So we spent like this beautiful day just like slogging it out once more. And then the entire rest of the trip, it was like 5 degrees and raining.
Yeah. It was a waste of a beautiful day. Yeah.
But now you're laughing about it, like however long later. So
yes,
memory made.
But before we ask the next question, I want to know what Kevin and Joe's worst trips were.
She's good at that, isn't she, Joe? She just switches.
No, but I'm curious.
Chris, you do not like being interviewed. You like being the interview. I experienced it myself. Joe, you've tripped with her.
Yeah.
He's a naturally curious person.
Sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, me. You know what? Honestly, like, I had talked about this a little bit, but I had a really big trip planned, a spring Algonquin ice out brook trout fishing trip. Right after I had learned, like maybe the year after I had learned how to catch brook trout and stuff like that, and I was real like hyped up on this. I planned for this forever, and I was going solo in my pack boat, and I pulled up to the put in, and it was pouring rain, and it was supposed to be a 6-day trip, and it never stopped raining the whole time, and it was ice out. It was like windy, a lot of snow that year that was melting, and a lot of rain, and a lot of current and big high water and stuff. So I had some route where I had to paddle upstream, which normally would have been fine. End up seeing a guy halfway through telling me that it's impossible. I didn't catch a fish. I caught like trout this big the whole time. I caught one decent sized trout. I lost it, and I was at the first 5 minutes, and none of it was on film at all. So it doesn't, it doesn't matter, right? But yeah, it told me I can't make it up the thing, so I had to switch my plan and do 6 hours of portage and 6 hours of paddle, going from, what was it, going on those black portages where it says on the map there, near the Tim River, where it says you might have to paddle through this chunk. Kevin's laughing, he knows what I'm talking about. You'll get lost. You might have to paddle through this chunk in the middle of this damn portage. You'll have to paddle through this portage. Anyways, I learned a lot about myself. I almost died. Legit almost died. Almost tipped my canoe 3 days deep into it, and like in an upstream thing, trying to paddle against current mode. It was crazy. I was camping where I wasn't supposed to. I just had to get out, so I busted my ass to get out, and then like borderline hypothermic the whole time. Slept under a tarp the whole time. But like thinking back on it and editing it and watching the video and even some of the, it's like the best, like honestly one of the most epic trips I've ever been on. You know what I mean? Like I was so much more confident after that trip. But yeah, at the time, man, I hated it. I was talking like I was pissed off. Like it was not. I'm singing songs at the end of it. I'm so delirious. Like it's one of them.
And you can.
Well, I was laughing because I think that was the trip too. Like I think you sent me a note saying, no, it was before that. You wanted to catch brook trout, and Kevin, where would I go?
Yeah.
And I said, well, the Upper Nipissing, and I don't think you did that. No, that was a different trip. So you went with your buddy.
Yeah.
And you caught some fall fish and some perch too.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where, and I'm not old at all, but I felt old. I'm thinking, you just need to practice a little bit more, Joe.
For sure.
Say, okay, like, did you want me to go on the trip and put the fish on the hook for you?
Show you, yeah, physically show, yeah. That's what I probably thought I needed. You know what I mean? I got it now. I'm good now.
No, yeah, you are good. You are good. Yeah, no, I just later. my worst trip. The only really bad trip I have actually nightmares about. In fact, I was writing about it the other day. Was I did that portage going from Hogan to Crow with my daughter a long time ago. We paddled across the park just like you guys did. And she was like 8 at the time, and so we were like maybe day 6 into it, and I suffer from bipositional vertigo. That figured out, right? So and I think all of us have some issues. We all have, right? But it happened on that trip, which never has ever happened on a trip before. It's always been around here. In fact, I have it now. That's why I'm kind of groggy today. But and I'm drinking tea. So
we had more of that whiskey earlier.
Well, you know what? I'm running low. I gotta watch it. Like it's a pandemic.
Amazing how that stuff evaporates.
Jeez, I'm gonna save that for later, maybe. I don't know. But no, what happened was after that portage, for some reason, I got vertigo, and I had all the emergency devices. I could push the spot button. I had a sat phone. I know Jerry at Algonquin Outfitters would come up with a boat at Obiango as long as they got through the Crow River and stuff. But it just pissed me off because, like, for 2 nights, I had to stay on Crow Lake trying to get rid of it on my own. I was on that sat phone with the physiotherapist trying to do the head maneuver on my own, and that's sucked. And why I really want to tell that story is it had nothing to do with the wilderness. It had nothing to do with bears, bad portage, rain. That had to do with something you can't control out there.
Right.
And that wasn't good. And then it was a good memory because my daughter helped me out, and then we finished the trip. We actually continued on. I got better. And but I'm thinking really bad trips. Maybe it's just all numb because I've had some really bad trips, whatever. But they're all being good. I mean, right now, to be quite honest, all those bad trips are amazing because I'm just trying to get out there right now.
Yeah,
me too. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So a little bit off topic. I mentioned Chris and Julia that I wanted to touch a bit on your Ironman stuff, and there's a question here I've been holding on to, and I kind of maybe have an idea, and I have a guess as to what the answer might be. But Sid's dad is asking, please share an Ironman memory.
Oh.
Well, there's the obvious one.
Yeah.
That's boring.
Which was a video that actually put a lump in my throat when I watched.
Oh,
That was awesome.
Yeah. Maybe the training day at Westport?
Sure. You tell.
So for the training that you had to do for the Ironman, in the many months ahead of it, we went up to Westport, Ontario, which has a really steep hill going out of it. And we climbed that 55 times in one day on the bike, to the point at which, at the end of the day, we were like, coming close to blacking out. And then later on that season, after we did our first Ironman triathlon, we look back and we were like, that training day was harder than the Ironman. It was a crazy training day. Just like it almost leaves you feeling broken for like weeks. But you kind of just have to press on and keep doing them.
Yeah.
I thought of a story as well.
Okay.
So remember that time that I was like this was early in the season, and I always used to start training before Chris because Chris is just a badass, and it takes me time to like get ahead of her. So I was going out for a morning run on the weekend, and you were like, "Oh, like you're going for a run? Can I come too?" And I'm like, "Of course, yeah." Like, how long is it? Like, oh, like 15 kilometers. She's like, "Well, I haven't really had anything to eat or drink yet, but I think I can do that. Let's go." But I'm like very impatient. I'm like, "We're going now, or you're not coming at all." So we go, and we're all going along this trail, and it just like, it seems to just be taking forever. And Chris is like, "I'm getting really hungry," and like we didn't really bring much water, and we're just like kind of like running on empty by the end of it. We get back to the car, and we're like, "Oh, that was like a terrible training run. Like that 15K took us 2 hours." And then I went out to do the same run after work one day, and like same deal. I'm like, "Why can I not get my time down? Like this run is taking me forever." And then I'm like, "Wait a minute." I map it out. Oh no, that was our 20K run from last year.
Yeah. Yeah. Some crazy training days. Yeah.
And how active are you two with that? Is it like how many triathlons do you usually participate in a year?
When we're doing the Ironmans, we really just train for the Ironman, and that's it. You train.
We did like the half and the full.
Do the half.
2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And then we kind of like cut it out cold turkey.
Yeah.
After our second Ironman, I'm like, "I'm done. I need a break," because it's just like it's really fun and really rewarding, but it's like having a part-time job. So
the opportunity cost is super high. Yeah. It's like you're going to spend anywhere from 10 to 20 hours per week training, week after week, month after month for like 8 months. And if you don't, like when you show up, your $900 race fee is just going to go down the toilet if you don't. And it's not like you can go out and just like say, "I'm going to do all those distances and take just a little bit longer." No, like there are cutoff times. So you have to do the 4-kilometer swim or 3.8 kilometer swim in, I think, under an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then
sorry, it's crazy to me. I couldn't even think about doing that.
Then you have to get off. You have to get out of the water, and then you have to bike 182 kilometers. 180. And then after that, you have to get off the bike, and you have to run a full-length running marathon. And it becomes like a regular part-time job in your life. The opportunity cost is just kind of nutty. We actually had the day that we were climbing the Lake Placid rock slide in Lake Placid, New York on Wakeface Mountain. We actually happened to meet the gentleman who is responsible for bringing the Ironman franchise to North America after it was on the island of Hawaii. And he was telling us that like Ironman triathlon enrollment is on the decline because it's just the opportunity cost to do one is just way too high. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, everybody's signing up for like Tough Mudders and Spartan races because you can be a weekend warrior. You don't have to do that day in, day out training. You can get your cool photo and then just be done with it.
Or
still get that rush from it or whatever.
Lowering down because it's just stupid.
Yeah, no, it is. The funny thing is, so both the half Ironman and the full Ironman at Mont Tremblant, they open up a year in advance. The half Ironman sells out in hours, like an entire year before the event. The full length Ironman, which is just stupid, and we've done it twice. Like it doesn't fill up. It takes about like 11 months before it fills up because people are just kind of like, I don't know if I really want to do it, and like maybe my training will hold up and I'll be able to do it. But some people's training like falls apart halfway through or they become injured. And
well, how much of it is mental? Like a big chunk?
I think a big chunk is mental, but you need to train mentally as well, right? Like you can't just be like, I'm just gonna like tough it out with my brain. Like,
No, you have to have been.
In order to develop the mental fortitude, you need to just like go out and like suffer and suffer more and suffer more until your body's like, well, yeah, this is just normal.
Yeah.
I think Joe, you know what this means? They're doing the meanest link. I can sense it.
It sounds meanest linkish.
No, get in there.
I think they have it in them. I think they have it in them.
Oh, I do too. You know what? I would do it, but I'm not allowed because I paddle a pack boat. It's against the rules, so you know.
Right.
I agree with both of you, you know, because I've done like 60-kilometer mountain bike races. I couldn't imagine doing, you know, a mountain bike race and then a swimming race and then
No.
Yeah, you can't do it without the training. And if you don't, that race will just eat your race entry fee up and spit you out. It's crazy.
But that being said, like, you do not have to be an athletic person to do this. Like, you do not have to be naturally athletic. Like, I am not at all naturally athletic. Before I met Chris, I couldn't run more than a block without getting winded. I couldn't swim more than a length in a pool without getting winded. And then you just train and you start slow and you work your way up. It's just a matter of training. So anyone can do it. It's just most people don't want to do it.
Don't go out and just sign up for an Ironman because it's gonna eat you alive. But you're gonna want to build up to Ironman over the course of many years. Yeah, don't sign. You're gonna lose your money.
Okay, can I ask what your best showings were?
We did it in 13 hours and what was it? 13 and change?
13 and a half, 13 hours and 27 minutes. It's weird that we don't remember our time.
And the temperature that day, with the Humidex that day, the temperature got up to 41 with the Humidex on the run. We were just melting on the pavement by the time.
You're going for 13 hours. You're going for 13 hours at nonstop.
Nonstop, yeah.
Oh my.
You're going pretty close to redlining. It's you're trying to come as close to your maximum power output as you can for those 13 hours. And I think what a lot of people don't realize about, because some people will just be like, "Oh, I'll just sign up for want to go do it," but without the training, it's just not going to happen. And what people don't realize is that your body.
Yeah,
I'm getting tired just talking about it. Holy cow! No, oh wow, no, that's pretty incredible. We're getting really close here to the 9 o'clock hour. I'm just going to throw a couple more one word answer questions there. One was the one that Ken put up there, asking about longest trip most days. Chris and Julia.
8 days.
Together 8 days. I did a 13-day trip once. It's really not that long.
All right. Kevin?
Oh, I think 6-7 weeks.
7 weeks.
That's a long trip.
Well,
I've done. When I was writing the guidebooks, I basically lived in the north and just went from trip to trip to trip to trip. Yeah, but actually, my most memorable long one was James Bay to Lake Nipigon. That was a solid 5 weeks. That was good. Yeah, wow. But you know what? To be quite honest, after 10 days, you don't count the days, so you really don't. I did fly-ins. I remember doing a fly-in once for food, and the pilot got there early, left it on an island, got there, and the bear had eaten.
Oh no!
Yeah, I had flour and prunes for quite a while.
Oh boy!
At least you're a regular.
That's true. I am a regular out there. Gotta say.
Me too.
Oh man, never met a thunderbox you didn't like, eh, Kevin? How about you, Joe? What's the longest trip you've done?
2 weeks, I think, just shy, about 13 days.
Yeah.
But Kevin's right about the 10-day mark. It's you're out there. You know what, man? About I've heard Kevin, and I see this in plenty of videos. I've heard Kevin Callan say before because I quote the dude. The guy's for people who don't know, Kevin Callan, man, He's somebody to listen to. But this gentleman has said before that after it takes at least 4 days, four nights before you finally get into the rhythm of it. Back in the day, and I'm just quoting Kevin again, back in the day, the general canoe trip was what did you say, 2 weeks?
Yeah, back in the 70s, you didn't go anything under 10 days because it took you days to get there.
Yeah.
So why would you only go for 2 nights, right? So
right. Yeah. And then so it was a big thing. I've read books of them taking month trips. With school, with kids taking month-long trips, it was a regular thing. But nowadays it's overnight, 2 nights if you're lucky type thing, and you don't really get into that rhythm. You don't really get into it. It's still that hectic, rush to get the food done, and things aren't especially exactly how I want them type thing. You're still in that city life or whatever. 4 or 5 days go by, you're like, okay, this is the rhythm of things. It's okay if things take a little bit longer. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to have my food soaking while I'm, you know what I mean? You just understand exactly what needs to happen, and that is what gets me going back. That's what that I'm addicted to. That feeling that everything's good. You know what I mean? I'm out here.
Yeah. I also find myself quoting Kevin a lot as well, and really subscribe to
That's my mother calling again.
I was just gonna say, Kevin, is that your mom calling again?
It is. Like
57's on that Canoehound show again. I gotta call her.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Every time I'm on your show, Dennis, my mom calls.
Tell her I say hi. Send my love.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Okay, continue.
That's kind of funny, actually.
You're
saying?
I want to say I find myself frequently quoting Kevin as well, in the sense that it's very important to use these places and use these routes and make sure they're well loved, or else they're going to be used for resource extraction. And that's something that Kevin that I've learned from Kevin over the years, and it's so true. It's so true. I couldn't agree more, Kevin.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't really think about all that stuff. I just go rambling on. But it is.
You do that.
We have a lot of but yeah, to spend time in the wilderness is amazing. I do find that canoe tripping and canoe community and outdoor community is different now. It's not that it's good, bad, but it's just different. But just so you know, I remember the time the canoe club in Peterborough would allow you in if you had a kayak.
Hmm.
So
Back in the bus.
Yeah, back in the day.
That's funny. We got a group around here. I live in Southern Ontario. We got a group around here. They're a paddling club, but they won't allow canoes in it, right? And I said, well, mine's a pack boat now. I wanted to support, maybe participate in some of their paddles around here. They wouldn't let me in because I have a pack boat. They said, if you can't paddle up in Tobermory or Georgian Bay, I can, but they want closed vessels. It's like, okay, whatever. I won't join.
you definitely can with a pack boat.
Oh yeah, for sure. One last question to go around the table really quick, and then we're gonna probably call it a night. We've had about 4 or 5 people ask, and it's on my little questionable list here as well. Favorite backcountry meals. We'll start with Chris and Julia. Hey.
Go, girls.
I am.
A new favorite backcountry meal for us is
Hey, go on. Sorry.
You never know what's going to happen on this show.
But yeah, we discovered this wonderful pizza recipe where you take naan bread, so like the Indian bread, and use that as your pizza crust, which is nice and soft, but then it gets crispy on the bottom. So good. And then just whatever toppings you want to throw on. I'm lactose intolerant, so we have this vegan cheese, which basically is just crushed cashews and nutritional yeast, which stays really good for a really long time out in the woods, which is a side benefit. And yeah, it's so good. Mixed with hunger spice is the best thing I've ever eaten.
What is the texture of that cheese?
It's like a Parmesan texture.
Got you.
Yeah. It's literally
What's your favorite backcountry meal?
In a blender.
Sorry, my favorite.
Yeah, we'll say besides steak because that's almost an obvious given for most people, right?
Like, so honestly, if I'm doing like an overnight, you know what I mean? I can carry a wax canvas pack. Weight isn't an issue. Definitely, I'm doing a ribeye steak with potatoes over the fire. You know what I mean? But if I'm on a like canoe trip, I love dehydrating just homemade spaghetti. Like my wife will make spaghetti, we'll eat it, and I'll just dehydrate the leftovers. I'll literally take the pasta sauce and the noodles, mix them all together, put it on parchment paper, dehydrate that. Sometimes I bring Parmesan cheese to rehydrate with. When I rehydrate, put it on. Sometimes I don't, but I'll do the same thing with chili. I'll say my favorite thing that I bring is dehydrated spaghetti, but my favorite meal out when I'm camping, when I'm canoe camping, is gonna have to be like deep fried fish crisp, fresh caught whatever fish it is, walleye, brook trout. Man, I don't even care. Bass. When you do it right, I can't tell the difference between pike bass and walleye. You know what I mean? So any of that stuff, it's a win in my book.
Check out my fish crisp video there, the one I make my own. You'll like that.
All right.
Same idea. Kevin, what's your fave?
I make really good meals out there because I got it for years too. And if you didn't make good meals, nobody would come back, right? So I do a lot of curries. I do baking. I use a reflector oven about every 5th or 6th day. Take a day off, do laundry, bake bread. But it's like Joe said, fresh fish. Because after day 7, your stomach needs it. Because I do my own dehydrated. I don't buy the stuff. But still, your stomach is like, and you got to stop and start eating fresh. So I'll bring a red cabbage with balsamic vinegar dressing. Make a salad out of that, and then I'll catch a lake trout. Joe, you and I will go out, and I'll have to show you how to do that, obviously. But I'm just joking. Man. Yeah, I got some Irish in me. It's Scottish. So you catch a lake trout, and then you get walleye, and you fill out the walleye. You put the walleye fillets inside the belly of the lake trout. You put some fresh lemons. So lemons and limes you always put in your kit. They'll last for a long time.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you cut that, and then you get some onions, and it leaks if you can find it while it leaks. And then you sew it up with actually fishing line, or actually I just use the sewing kit that's in your first aid kit, and put it in the bake it in the coals, and it's nice. It's really nice.
I'm into it.
I like
You're
that.
Yeah.
making me hungry. One final question. This comes from a good buddy of mine here on YouTube, and this is for Chris. Do you enjoy spicy food, and what's the hottest thing you've ever eaten?
Oh yeah, I know. I love spicy food. But I really just put on like whatever we have around here, like the Frank's Red Hot or the sriracha or peppers. Yeah, love it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys.
Oh, wait a minute. No, Julie did not talk about her peanut butter s'more thing.
Do we want to get into overtime? Tell us about it.
So in terms of desserts, the best dessert ever, camping or not camping, is a peanut butter s'more, which is a 2-bite brownie, a little bit of peanut butter on top, or in my case, a lot because I like peanut butter. And then you take a toasted marshmallow, put it on top. Best thing you will ever eat.
Wow.
How many of you have tried it? Kevin has.
That's good.
I got one for you. Same vein. Reese's peanut butter cups are the graham crackers.
Ooh.
Like to replace graham crackers. So this would be to replace the.
Yeah, you roast 2 marshmallows. You just smash that together with the Reese's peanut butter cups.
Okay, that does sound good.
Yeah.
Even though Joe sleeps outside the tent and is not sleep with me, I will go with you again, Joe. I will.
I would like that. I will catch film while you catch fish.
Hearing those last two dessert recipes, my ass just spread out about 6 inches. Right onto the head.
With on that note,
Kevin, all of you, man. Oh man, wow, peanut butter and wow, good stuff. Anyways, thanks for a great night. You know what? This is an awesome night. Good having you, Julia and Chris on. Thanks very much.
Thanks
and of course, our guests down below for coming on. Hope everybody in the chat really enjoyed it.
And Joe, thank you so much for being on the show.
Anytime.
No problem.
I was just going to ask if you had any final closing statements, Chris.
Oh.
Subscribe.
No.
Yeah, if there's anybody in the chat here that has not been to Chris Prouse's YouTube channel, check it out. It's linked down in the description below. Get on there and check her video.
That like button.
No. Just, you know what? I something that I do want to leave everybody with is I probably wouldn't have gotten into backcountry camping if it wasn't for Julia. So I think as good Canadians, it's our responsibility to take people who might not consider going camping out camping. And if we each take 2 or 3 people out there, we can keep the love of camping going on forever. So if you are an outdoor canoe camper of any kind, drag your friends, family, whoever out there, and share the love, keep it going.
Well, that's way better than what I had to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. You say what you were going to say, Julia. We'll put a vote to it.
No, that's I was just saying that hers is better than me saying subscribe. Now I seem like a tool.
Joe, it's a good thing they're not in isolation together.
But yeah, right now, if you're taking anybody out in your canoe, make sure your canoe's at least more than 6 feet wide or 6 feet long, right? So you can social distance and right over there. Joe's holding back over here.
I just got to pee really, really bad.
Yeah. You know what? I think we're all going a little stir crazy. We all need to get out, and you know what? The funny part is we wouldn't be starting the canoe until about now, anyways. But just because we know we have restrictions, is making us want to get out there even more, right? So that's the crazy part of this all. I think Joe's going to get another juicy ass.
Dennis, Joe's gone.
Yeah.
Let's tell some stories. Let's tell some stories about Joe.
I haven't got that many.
Yeah, remember the time?
What's that?
Remember the time when I got no stories actually. He does eat a lot though.
That's funny. I don't know. Anyways, so we'll wait till he comes back. Okay, any more stories? Do we have any more stories?
Oh, geez, Kevin, you have an endless supply of stories.
No, it's your night, Chris. No. Well, we already talked about how bad Julia is for cooking. We talked how bad Cedar is as a child. I mean, good Lord. But you do not know the full explanation of the bear story, but I'm thinking you're holding back on that, right? Because you got that on film, I think, didn't you?
Sorry, what's that?
When the bear came in your camp when you were when you had Cedar.
Sorry, what about the bear coming in?
We did get it on film.
Oh,
There will be a video.
There will be a video. Okay, so there it is. That's the anticipation. And Joe will miss this because he's gone peeing. He will never know until the video comes out.
Well, when can we expect that video, Chris?
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, for mid-May.
Mid-May?
Yeah.
Because many of us here, you're rather a perfectionist when it comes to your editing and stuff.
A little bit, yeah. It comes from working
just
with
a
clients.
little.
Dennis,
You know who told me that?
She moved the table. Julie, remember, she moved the table 2 inches before we did that interview for like 2 hours.
And Kevin, you know the funny thing is she was trying to be quick because she was around you.
Oh my Lord!
I should say that when we are actually out canoe paddling and tripping, I completely respect that I can't drive Julia nuts and try to be perfectionists out there. So we do keep things flowing when we're out canoe camping as much as we can. So
Shh, he's back. Shh. No more Joe stories. Shh.
Okay.
Hi, Joe.
Two more questions I gotta pop up here. One is for Joe, because this gentleman's been asking a few times. Joe, when's your next video coming out?
I have one. I just finished one today, but someone that I was not with, but that was there at the same time wants to put one out at the same time. So I might wait till Friday. It's a half an hour long. It's a fishing video, searching for steelhead and catching smelt. I also have another one, me four-wheeling around up Highway 129 looking for steelhead and catching none.
Catching none.
But I might go tomorrow or Friday. Tomorrow's supposed to be pretty crappy, but I'll go Thursday actually. I got a line on where they're running real hard, so I want to go try and grab a few, my limit at least.
Very cool.
I'll make a video.
Make a video. We want to see it. We want to see it. And one last one here for Chris and Julia. Like I say, is there something behind calling your son Cedar? Is it because Whiskey Jack doesn't have the same ring or backstory?
For many years, we've been going to the Banff Mountain Film Festival tour that goes across Canada and around the world. And some of the films that they regularly feature are by a filmmaker named Cedar Wright. And he climbs with Alex Honnold, who's the guy who free solos like Yosemite and does all that crazy stuff. But Cedar Wright, great character. Everybody in the community loves him. He's very endearing, and that's where we got the name from.
Yeah, and he's not only a climber but a filmmaker too. So it's like that, great person who shares our interests. Not that we climb, and it's also a very obviously nature inspired outdoorsy name, and we're in love with that. So yeah, we sat on the fence for the name for a while because we're is it too weird? Is he gonna not appreciate that name?
I don't think you can go too weird these days.
Yeah, and we fell in love with it. And
I mentioned your son's name to my daughter last night. You and I were chatting last night, Chris, and after you and I disconnected here on the test stream there, I was telling my daughter, I said, yeah, they got a little boy named Cedar. She goes, oh, what a great name.
You get one of two reactions. You either get, oh my gosh, that's the best name ever, or oh.
Are your parents vegan?
Yeah. No.
When we were having autumn, we were thinking about names and stuff, and we really, really highly considered Linden, and Linden is the Latin name, obviously, for basswood. So it's a really nice. It's a tree, but just the Lynn, I couldn't Lynn as a short form. I couldn't get over, but
Autumn is a beautiful name.
Yeah. Thank you.
When my daughter was born, we called her Kyla. And Kyla Frances Callan. And my buddy Speedo Man, the day she was brought home, he put a bucket of KFC chicken on my front porch. And I went, what the hell is this?
Good old Speedo Man putting my microphone thing in his crotch. Remember that?
That was wrong, that was wrong. We'll never go back to those times.
Calling it bushcraft.
Stop it. Wrong.
Joe, you drinking a juicy ass?
Mm-hmm.
Cheers, buddy.
Oh, cheers, big guy.
Look at that, eh? Your juicy ass is on screen. I asked her what she was going to be drinking tonight. And I said, oh, I'm drinking a juicy ass. She says, oh, you think Joe's ever had one of the beers?
That's the best. That's the best beer from Flying Monkeys, bar none.
Yeah. Unless you've ever had their Sparkle Puff.
I have. That's really strong, though.
Yeah. It's 10.5%.
That's that peach one. It tastes like you're just biting into a peach, but it's soaked with alcohol.
Crazy. Yeah. Good old juicy. You know what? Some of my favorite beers, like craft beers, all have ass in the name. Pompous Ass is another good one.
You're an ass man.
No, right? Sorry, but hey, overtime. Everything goes now. Everything goes.
Oh, man. Enough of this quarantine life. We need to get out.
So just so everybody in the chat knows, usually after the chat is over, we on panel will usually sit in behind, and this is the kind of stuff that we talk about. So this is like a live after party.
This is like for the Patreons. They should get this only in the Patreon access.
Right.
I thought you stopped recording already. What? Are we still on?
We're still on, man. It's like you guys don't want to quit. That's okay. That's okay. No. In all reality, though, we should close up the show just so that I could have my live chat show again on the replay. I think if you get over a certain time amount there, they actually shut that off because it's too much whatever.
Yeah.
So you guys want to stick around for a few minutes after the show? I'd like to say my thank yous behind the scenes.
Sure. Yeah.
Julia, Chris, thanks again very much for coming on tonight. It's great to share the insight. Chris will definitely set up an instructional stream, camera editing stuff 101.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for hosting, Dennis.
Yeah,
this has been
great.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks again to Kevin and Joe for being on the live stream.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
These guys rock. Kevin, thanks for joining in. You jumped on a whim there. He called you up last night and or texted you last night, and thanks for accommodating.
What do you mean? I was going after Joe? What the hell?
I didn't know if Joe was going to come on or not because I just passed the thing. Joe, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it too. Good to see you. That's working awesome. And that's all good. So just as a reminder to everybody, the next couple of weeks there, we got a couple of good shows coming up as well. On May 5th, we have David Pearson from the YouTube channel Really Big Monkey 1. If you're into bushcraft, he's another guy that you might want to check out. May the 12th, we have one of the season 3 winners of Alone from the History Channel. That would be Ted Baird, one of the Baird brothers. And on May 19th, we have Stephen Coutts. So we could learn a little bit more about canoepoling, the lost art of canoepoling.
Nice.
A lot of you are saying, canoepoling? What the heck is that? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out or check out Stephen's YouTube channel. So with that being said, make sure you mark your calendars for those dates. While you're here tonight, if you haven't already done so, please do hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel of all these awesome people over here. They got great websites and things like that, Facebook and all the neat things. I got links down below for Chris.
MySpace.
Friendster. But yeah, totally. Everybody needs, if you haven't subscribed to Dennis's channel yet, you really do need to. Dennis puts a tremendous amount of work into lining up these live streams every week, and he really does put a lot of work in behind the scenes. So if you haven't already, thank Dennis by subscribing or sending him a like or watching his catalog of videos. So
thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. Just got to say hi to my mom right here. Hi, Mom. How you doing? Mom, Dad? They're in the chat tonight, so that's all cool. Thanks for watching. And I think that's about it. So anyways, everybody, have yourselves a great week. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you next Tuesday. This is Dennis of Canoehound Adventures saying, and if any of you know my catchphrase, keep the adventures alive. Yeah, they're what? Have a good night, everyone. Cheers.